All right, we are back for another episode, and actually we're jumping into the fourth quarter, man. 2019 is officially almost on the backside. I can't believe
it's cooling down. The weather's feeling good.
Is it cooling down?
It's awesome.
Because it was 600 degrees yesterday.
Well, it's only 500 today.
I know. I think we set a record in Nashville. What it hit 97 yesterday. So
we get a little rain this weekend. We haven't had rain in about 5 or 6 weeks.
I know. I sure hope so. But Nashville was this great place. Moved to get away from the cold winters, and now I think people are moving back north to get away from the hot summers.
Gotcha.
Or something. I don't know. But anyways, hey, man, we're hanging out with a special guest today.
We've got a guest.
That I bet you
people don't have to tolerate just you and I.
I know. Although I feel like that's a privilege of theirs. But we have got Brian Nutter in the studio today.
Right.
And, man, I don't even know how to introduce this guy.
Me neither.
Guitar player, guitar builder, producer.
We're going to break it down. There's a lot of moving parts to this guy.
Session guy. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure you probably grill chicken on it pretty good, too, or I don't know.
You know what? I'm actually not so bad. Not with grilled chicken, but steak.
Steak, okay.
Yeah, really good with the filet.
Okay, as long as it's not past medium.
No.
You can't do that.
And as long as you're not like Nate over here, who puts sauce on his steak.
Oh my God, no.
We go to nice restaurants and get $50 steaks, and then he asks for like A1 sauce, and I'm like, man,
hey, there's nothing wrong with making it taste better.
When somebody asks for A1 sauce on a nice steak like that. Man, you just want to kick them.
I'm surprised they don't ask you to leave.
It tastes
I'm surprised they even have it. Why? Why does a place?
Actually, we went out to 1892. My wife and I went out for our anniversary. We were married for 16 years, and we went out there, and I got this filet. It was like one of just a couple steaks on the menu out there in Leaper's Fork, and I asked for A1 sauce, and she said, "No, we don't have any."
Good for her.
I was like, "What,
man? I am good for her." Matter of fact, I am going to go to that restaurant and I'm going to celebrate with them because no good steak place should have any sauce.
Well, Hannah thinks just like you because even on our
she's smart.
On our honeymoon, we ate at a really nice steakhouse down in Atlanta, and I asked for A1 sauce, and she was like, "Oh, you're embarrassing me." I was like, "Hey, hey, a man likes a steak the way he likes a steak, Well, but anyways, I don't think anybody.
I'll tell you how I do the filet.
All right,
later.
Let's go.
Oh, you?
No,
now?
let's talk now.
Right. Yeah, filet. Cast iron skillet.
Yes.
A little olive oil.
Yeah.
Salt, pepper, both sides. Sear it for about 3-4 minutes.
Okay.
Each side. Then deglaze with a little white wine. Mince up some garlic and some shallots. That goes in, and then in the oven for about 8 minutes on 450.
Oh, okay.
Comes out of there.
This is good.
Seared, like medium rare.
Really?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
I would try that without any A1 sauce on it.
Tremendous.
You got to have the cast iron, though.
Yeah, cast iron is key to the world.
That's all I cook with.
Yeah, oh, for real.
That's all I cook with. I cook a lot, and that's all I use is cast iron.
Yeah.
Except I have one pan that for some reason, I use for eggs, and that's it.
Okay.
But outside of that, I got a stack of cast iron. I love the stuff. So, anyways, let's jump in.
Yeah, man, let's jump in.
Brian, you ready?
Yeah,
let's go.
Hey, welcome to the show, and I'd love to. I'm getting ready to want to know more about you. So
yeah. Well, let's kick it off. And what a lot of people are probably doing is either listening or watching and going, okay, why is this guy here?
Yeah, really.
He
wondering the same thing.
It's like, and so what we want to do is we want to go from the beginning. We want to kind of start and just talk through life with you.
It was a cold evening in January in 1973.
So we want to talk about where are you from, man?
I'm from West Virginia.
Okay.
And came from a little town about 40-50 miles north of Charleston, West Virginia. Mm-hmm. A lot of people confuse that. And right on the Ohio River. Mm-hmm. Grew up, is about as country as you can get. Just a little kid in a trailer park in West Virginia. That my dad played pedal steel in a country band throughout the 70s into the early 80s. They had a small independent record deal here in Nashville. Had a couple of top 100 hits. I don't even call them hits. They probably misses
Yeah.
more than they were anything. But they were on the charts.
Yeah.
And you know, Dad had you know, they had Charlie McCoy was their backer, and Charlie at the time was the musical director for Hee Haw.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
So Charlie's also another hillbilly, another West Virginian.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's grew up listening to really, really hardcore country stuff, and then by the time I'm, you know, 12 or so, I think I heard Blizzard of Oz for the first time.
Oh, man.
And
Lots
life
of
changed.
notes. Yeah.
So then played guitar, just doing rock and heavy metal of all the 1980s, and that's pretty much where my whole guitar playing thing starts. Is seeing guys play in my dad's band, and the closest thing I got to rock and roll when I was a kid was probably like the Eagles, Skynyrd, all the Southern rock stuff. Blackfoot and Molly Hatchet and that thing. And I was always fascinated with this one guitar sound, even as a kid, and I didn't realize it was Joe Walsh until
Interesting.
until I was later on. Mm-hmm. So Joe is a huge deal for me. And then by the time I was, first introduced to like metal and rock, like with Ozzy, Randy had just died. So Jakey Lee was the guitar player. So oddly enough,
He's a great guitar player.
Jakey Lee
He's one of my favorite guitar players.
Is my
actually.
favorite Ozzy guitar player.
Is he?
Over Randy and Zach.
I think I'm on. I like that. I think he's mine as well.
And I then from there I went backwards and found Sabbath, and then found the connection to Dio and Rainbow and Deep Purple and all of that like early era English heavy metal, and that's the stuff that like really just love.
Yeah.
Did he play? Jakey Lee play on more than just the Bark at the Moon?
He did Bark
album?
at the Moon, and he did the Ultimate Sin record, which is the one that for whatever reason Ozzy sort of shuns, and I'm not sure why.
I love the guitar tones on that.
Me too. I've always loved that record.
The tones of that to me is some of the best Ozzy stuff. But as a drummer, it's kind of hard for me to say that and be taken seriously.
I know. I didn't mind Zach. I thought Zach Wild was great.
No,
I love me some Zach Wild. It just Jake is the the one that I came in contact with on the biggest picture first, and then and that was that.
Yeah, I was kind of that way too. I kind of went backwards. I learned more about Randy Rhoads after the fact because of just my age and everything. I heard that stuff. Actually, I remember I was in junior high and a buddy of mine at school walked into my house and goes, "Dude, you've got to hear this tape." And I was like, "Okay." And it was No More Tears. So that was literally the first album of Ozzy's I had ever heard.
Oh, wow.
So, and then I started going backwards, but I gravitated towards, I just thought, man, Bark at the Moon, man. I just thought that was just killer. And so Jakey Lee kind of stood out out of all of that to me.
Like the guitar playing in, what is it, Shot in the Dark? Is that the,
Yeah, that's on Ultimate
his
Sin.
rhythms and his tone and his
man,
feel on
it's
that.
great stuff.
Man, I just loved to listen to that. And that's when I really was like, man, he is an incredible
Did you
guitar
see
player.
Did you see the video of Jakey Lee at NAMM a couple years ago where he was talking about that a lot of people play Bark at the Moon wrong, and then he's sitting there trying to play it and he couldn't even remember. It took him a second to figure out. He was like, well, hold on a second, let me figure. He couldn't even remember how he played it.
I have played that tune incorrectly a number of different ways over the years. And see, my fascination with Jake also then transcends into my guitar building thing, because Jake was using this white Strat that said Charvel on the headstock, and I always thought it was a Charvel. Well, Charvel was a company owned at that point by Grover Jackson. Grover's also the one that developed Randy's Concorde, the Flying V, the pointy one, the one that we now know as the Randy Rhoads model. And so Grover was making guitars for every cat that I was into at that time. He made guitars for George Lynch. He made guitars for Warren DeMartini and Robbie Crosby and Rat. Oh,
John Sykes.
I love
was he a Jackson
Warren.
guy?
No, he was a Les Paul Custom, black Les Paul Custom.
Was he really? Even back in the day, huh? That's still
same
the
guitar
night as
to
a
this
black
day.
Les Paul Custom, huh? I could tell it was black by the tone. No.
So yeah, then I got just sort of fascinated in that. It turns out that Jake's white Strat is actually a 1973 Fender Strat that was Charvelized.
Okay.
They cut down the headstock. If you ever see the back of it, it's a 3-bolt neck.
Oh, wow.
And if you look at it closely, there's a bullet truss rod. So that guitar was an actual 1973 hardtail Fender Strat.
Interesting. Wow. So how did getting back to your father and country, because it's intriguing, because that's ends up where you land is in the country scene, which we'll talk about
oddly
in a minute.
enough.
But pedal steel is a very interesting instrument.
Oh, Paul Franklin says it's like juggling while standing up in a canoe.
Yeah.
It's a trip, man.
I know a couple guys that are really good at it. So I'm sure that was probably a little bit of an influence.
Oh, it's huge.
Watching your dad play pedal steel and being around other artists. Is that what helped form some of your
completely
desire to play guitar?
Ever since I was born until I was about 12, there was a band that rehearsed in my living room. So we always had drums and a small little PA and guitars and everything just around. I can remember being as young as like 3 or 4 and them showing me where the power switch was for the little PA so I could just stand there and sing.
Yeah.
Oh,
the drummer left sticks for me to just like bang on stuff. And it was a really cool way to grow up, around all of that. I wasn't a guy I was never really into sports too much. I was always fascinated with just all things music, and oddly enough with motorcycles. Dad had a few like old dirt bikes whenever I was a kid. So that's the only thing I ever cared about was just, music stuff and motorcycles.
Did you gravitate towards guitar first or something else?
I tried guitar when I was about 5 or 6 and it hurt.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then after hearing that Ozzy record, I think hearing it was I Don't Know, the very first track on Blizzard. I had been around electric guitars all my life at that point, and
That's
I
a
had
great rhythm on that.
Oh my god! And I had never heard one make that noise before. So that's what I was just like, okay, I have to know everything about this and how to make that sound.
Yeah. And so your evolution from playing guitars, what did you do after you got out of the house, so to speak?
So I ended up going to college at West Virginia University in Morgantown to study music education. And I did that for about 2.5 years until I discovered that I would just rather go play.
Music education to be a teacher? To be okay.
Yeah, I was actually going to be a choir director.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That was the plan, or band director.
Yeah.
I had an emphasis in voice and a minor, oddly enough, in percussion.
Okay.
So left, but at the time I was giving guitar lessons and playing, in all of the local bars in Morgantown and toga parties and all that kind of stuff.
Any place you could.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then from there I moved to Los Angeles, and
your world.
Why
changed,
to L.A.? What was the deal there? Just because it was a time, it was a place to be.
It was, this would have been the mid '90s, and growing up playing the kind of rock and roll I was always into, like either the older English heavy metal stuff or the more popular, more commercial hard rock or hair metal or whatever you want to call it at that time. L.A. was where all the guys were.
Yeah.
But by this point, the grunge scene had decimated that whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so what I was moving to was the aftermath. So I got out there, and what used to be this like thriving rock and roll scene was. I got there and it was this very like sedate and kind of like confused state of events. Whenever you would sort of walk around, the Sunset Strip used to be this just like bevy of activity.
Yeah.
But then I got there and it was like tumbleweeds.
Really?
Yeah.
So as a guitar player, that's got to be an unfortunate time in a way, because you're coming off the cusp of a ton of energy in the music industry into grunge, and then it starts, in my opinion, started nosediving a lot for musicians. You know, the clubs out there, the bands out there, everybody was like,
Totally.
what do we do?
Yeah, I never related to that whole like grunge area of stuff. I mean, I like to shower. I liked my dad.
Yeah.
Flannel
wasn't the only shirt you had.
Yeah, totally. I wasn't sad. I was a happy guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it just didn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
I liked playing rock and roll and having fun. That was what. That's what rock and roll was to me. Was having fun. It wasn't about being irritated or being, you know,
angry.
Yeah, angry about anything. So I get out to L.A. and I. One of the semesters in college, I actually took a little detour and I went to the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio.
Yeah, I went there. I graduated from there.
And so
What
I did
year?
that, 91.
Oh, okay. That was before my time.
The ADAT was about to come out.
Really?
Yeah.
The Yamaha O2R.
Okay.
Remember that board?
I do.
The first digital board? They just got one when I was
The
there.
Pro Tools at that point was a 2-track editing software called Sound Tools.
Wow.
And
Small world, man.
Totally. So when I got to LA, then I started working in studios doing engineering and audio for animation and audio for film, and I did a lot of sessions in the gangster rap world.
Cool.
Did you really?
Yeah,
That would almost be fun.
I did a lot of sessions for the Ruthless Records label, which was owned by Eazy-E.
Easy-E, yeah.
Eazy had just died. So I did some stuff for like Bone Thugs and Harmony and a few things in and around that, either engineering and then would do other sessions playing guitar or doing background vocals on stuff. The band I was in at the time, we were right on the cusp of being signed by Atlantic, and then when that folded, I moved to Nashville. And also, while I was in LA, I got the opportunity to meet guys like guitar makers like Don Grosh and John Carruthers and Tom Anderson. And it was those guys that showed me that I used to, you know, like everybody would think guitars are made out of, you know, by Keebler elves out of like magic, in gigantic buildings and factories, and they just spit these things out. And it was those guys that made me realize, no, like dudes can make guitars, you know, just because I told Don, I was like, man, I want to come by the factory sometime. He's like, factory?
It's a building.
And he's like, hell, we make these in my parents' garage.
Yeah.
What? So I met up with, I got to meet a few of the guys that worked at the Fender Custom Shop, and they started showing me like setup and electronics and all of that, because I was too poor to be able to afford, you know, to have anybody do that stuff for me. So then I started making guitars on my own, and then moved to Nashville to make guitars. That was my whole plan.
To not play music.
By that point I was 28, and I was like, you know what? I have aged out of being a rock star, and the rock and roll that I wanted to play anyway was dead and gone.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make guitars. I landed in Nashville. Hey, here I am, and everyone looked at me and went, "Who?"
So
Yeah.
And there's a whole van leaving that was here.
Exactly.
Ago, you know.
So I then, you know, kind of regroup and realize, all right, I need to eat. So I started getting gigs. The first thing I got was to be a guitar tech for a new solo artist on Capitol Records named Keith Urban.
Oh,
and I went out and I teched for him for about.
That's kind of a lucky land, ain't it?
Man, it was. Yeah, it was. It was awesome.
Yeah.
The guy that Keith had been in a band called The Ranch.
Yeah.
And the bass player in that band, Jerry Flowers, is also from West Virginia. And Jerry and I sort of knew each other kind of at a distance. We had all the same friends back home.
Yeah.
So I do the gig with Keith for about 6 months, and then I moved on and I teched for Michael Britt from Lone Star for a few months as well. Most people actually now probably know Michael more as doing profiles for the Kemper amp.
Profiles, yep.
And Michael's the first cat that I built a guitar for here in town.
Interesting.
And then after that, I just started getting playing gigs. And the playing career sort of got in the way of making stuff, but I continued to do that, continued to fix things, continued to build guitars, and like hone my skills doing all of that. And by late 2006, I find myself back in the Keith Urban camp, but this time in the band. So in the band, I'm playing, electric guitar, acoustic, banjo, mandolin, keys, pedal steel, just whatever they threw at me, in singing. It was, hey, Nutter, do you have one of those? No, but if you get me one, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and then stayed there until 2014, whenever we found out that my little girl was going to be born.
Okay.
Wow.
And then relaunched the guitar company, and here we are.
Yeah. So back up and talk about playing for Keith Urban, because I would think that playing guitar for a guy like Keith Urban is kind of got to suck in a way. And I'm being sarcastic.
No, man, it doesn't suck at all.
No, hold on. Let me finish. It's kind of got to suck because not only is he a good-looking guy, but he's a smoking guitar player. And so what's your role? Because usually the guitar player in the band, wants the attention on him.
Well, no, your role there is definitely supporting. So
you're a utility player.
I always told everybody I was Malcolm.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Which is a great gig.
Oh my God. So he was the guy with the Telecaster and the Fender amps.
He was the guy.
So I came in with big humbucker guitars and Marshalls.
Oh, okay.
So that was whenever I started getting gigs in town. Country music at that point wanted rock and roll guys.
A little bit of a rock flavor, yeah.
So I would come in with a Marshall amp, and everyone was like, "Oh, fantastic!" So no, that was the coolest part about being in that band. Now the not so cool part was because he's a really good looking cat. You've got to stay in really good shape, and I ran a lot. And there's nothing like seeing yourself on a 40-foot tall video wall.
Yeah.
Just like, oh God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Self-note: run more, drink less beer.
Wait, scratch the second part.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, and he's like I said, he's just a smoking player.
Oh, dude.
Man,
Keith is a tremendous guitar player, and a magnificent entertainer. I think that gets overlooked a lot with him. He's just really, really great.
Yeah, I've watched, just because I sit and analyze people sometimes, and I've watched some of his performances. Now, I don't even have a record by him or anything, but I could listen to him going, yeah, he's the real deal.
Totally.
But I can watch him and his performance, his moves, and I'm not saying he's doing this in acting. He's being a pro.
No, yeah.
And he moves the crowd.
For real.
And I completely understand why people are in awe of him.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
he's magic. When he hits that stage, he's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of other guys out there, and I'm just always like, this is probably something I shouldn't say, but I'll watch the award shows or whatever, and I'll watch either of those guys perform, and they'll get awards that Keith will be up for, and I'm just like, you dudes aren't qualified to carry his guitar case.
Yeah. Sometimes it becomes a popularity contest.
It is.
So.
Hey, so we should try to create a little bit more controversy because we have in the past. So we've had somebody on the show.
You've got to watch this.
Yeah, so
I know what this question's going to be.
Oh, I know you do.
Can I ask the question?
Okay, go ahead.
He is going to ask, and I ask you not to answer, is who's a better guitar player, Keith or Brad Paisley?
Oh,
is that
man.
right?
Yeah, because we had
dude.
a friend of Brad's on that talked, and I asked him the same question, and he kind of refused to answer
All
the
right,
question.
Which he was smart. Yeah, he's been interviewed before. He's like, he had a good PC skirt to that. I was like, man, he's been asked that question before.
All right.
Somebody's gonna answer this eventually.
No.
There are two times specifically that I remember us doing gigs with Brad. Once was whenever I was a guitar tech, and we were playing some festival or whatever, and Keith opened, and Brad's on stage later, so Keith's going to go out and play. Mm-hmm. And he and I are standing side stage, and he's about to go on, and I go, anything I can get for you, man, or whatever? He goes, yeah, you can go cut off Brad's left hand to give me a head start.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they did that tune, Start a Band.
Yes.
And we were doing this big benefit that Keith does called All for the Hall, and it's for the Country Music Hall of Fame. So Brad came out and was going to play with us on Start a Band, and that song's in F. So at the end, they decided that we were going to do this big reprise and like kick into this train beat and do, like a 1-4-5, trading eights kind of thing where, Keith would take 8 bars and Brad would take 8 bars, just doing like the full-on country chicken picking thing. And I saddle it beside Keith and I go, so this is in F, and you're going to do like a chicken picking thing with Brad. And he goes, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which is funny is Zach. If you go back and Zach Childs from Two Tones, if you go back, we did a podcast with him, and he of course asked that obnoxious question to Zach and made him feel uncomfortable. But anyways, that's a sidebar. But what was interesting is how much Zach praised Keith Urban's playing.
Oh yeah,
because he was like,
Dude.
he goes like, people don't understand how good his chicken picking is, and how good his fingers are.
Now, you see, I say all of that stuff, and that's just Keith being just funny about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because that's the cool part. One of the great things about him is he's a fan.
Yeah.
And he's also like truly humble about, what he's capable of and his own abilities.
Yeah.
So for him, it's like, whoa,
Well,
no
Which
way.
is a good place to be.
Dude, it's awesome.
Well, beyond the fun of the question is it's recognizing, but both of those guys are just incredible
Off the
guitar
charts.
players,
Dude,
and that's
off
it's,
the
it's
charts.
to be honest with you, it's more of a
Yeah.
reason just to talk about. I mean, Keith Urban, some of the tone on the solos that he gets on some of his songs is just so
It's
enjoyable.
incredible.
It's just so enjoyable.
In that podcast
Brad,
with
too.
Zach, he was talking about when he was playing with the Ranch, playing at a local club where he was playing a telly through a PV amp, and it was all clean. And he was talking about how good the tone was and how good his sound was. It just made me want to go back and listen to that kind of stuff.
That's his old custom shop Telecaster into a Boss CS2 compressor into 2 PV Bandits.
Interesting.
Oh wow, okay.
One of them was borrowed, and I think he still has it from Jerry, the bass player's brother Randy, who actually plays guitar for Meatloaf.
Oh really?
Interesting. It's a crazy world, ain't it?
It is a crazy one.
Well, cool. Let's go past and what's after Keith Urban?
Well, I mean, after Keith Urban, my wife and I did a duo record.
Okay.
And we did a big tour, and that was like in 2015. We did that, and it was during the middle of that tour is whenever I decided to relaunch the guitar company. And we had an independent record deal. CAA was our booking agent.
Who did you go as? What were you
Unbreakable
called?
was the name of the duo.
Okay.
And then one afternoon in a parking lot in Ocala, Florida, on a phone call, all of that dissolved into thin air, as so many things do in the music business.
Sure.
And we just looked at each other and we were like, you know what? That's enough. We're done.
Yeah.
So we went home, and that's where we are now. 2 kids later.
Yeah.
Living out in the sticks. And
Still Unbreakable, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. Good place to
Absolutely.
be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and then so you continued with the guitar brand.
Yeah, finally, sort of after about a year of really trying to find my identity with it, because you get into, there's so many guitar makers, and everybody wants to make a Fender, or particularly here in Nashville, everyone wants a Telecaster. I'm really probably going to cause controversy here because I don't understand the fascination with a Telecaster. It's 2 boards screwed together. That's it. There's, I get, the simplicity and the genius and all that behind it, but it's just, it's never held a thing for me. So I would go to trade shows and I would look around and I would see all of these Fender guitars that didn't say Fender on them. And I myself at that time was making something that was very much like that. And I was like, okay, if I do this, I'm going to be just like buried in this sea of Fender wannabes. I got to do something different.
Yeah.
So, in my shop one night, with a cigar and a beer and armed with my pencil and my protractor and all that kind of stuff, off to drawing I went and developed this sort of like retro futuristic angular thing, and that's kind of what I've been doing. And
what inspired that? Is some of the some of the 80s, 90s,
yeah,
and
a lot
some
of
the
that.
modern, and then
it wasn't really so much in the modern though, but it definitely was 80s and 80s kind of stuff because and even older. Is I'm a nerd, so I loved like sci-fi and that kind of thing, like Star Trek and Star Wars and all of that. But in the guitar side, one of my favorite guitars in the world is a Gibson Explorer, which very straight lines, angular, all of that. And then you get into like the stuff that Jackson was making or the stuff that BC Rich was doing, the original BC Rich company at least, and just started adapting things. And then I was trying to come up with something that looked like it should have always been there. And not anything that was so far off the beaten path, or that people would look at it and go, "That's too crazy." And what I've ended up with is getting the reaction I always wanted, which was, "Wow, that's really neat." Even if it's not for everybody, and I don't need everybody.
That's right.
I don't give a flip about everybody.
Yeah.
The people that get
few.
it, and the people that don't, that's awesome. I mean, there's a guitar out there for you.
Sure.
What was the first guitar you ever built? You said you built one for somebody. Here,
The first
right?
one I built was in Nashville was for Michael Britt, and it's a very Strat inspired kind of thing.
Nothing like what you've got. Right now.
Nothing like what I do now. No, absolutely not. But it's fun. Now I did one special one-off thing for Keith that I've since done about 10 of them, and it's a double neck, and it's a 6-string electric guitar over a 6-string electric banjo, which is.
That's a banjo. I always look at that thinking it was a resonator, but it's a banjo.
No, it is a banjo. Yeah, it's a 6-string banjo.
And what inspired that?
Necessity. On that gig, you would always have to go back and forth between playing the 6-string banjo or electric or something, and some part would always sort of get left by the wayside, and we used to joke, "Hey, we should make a double neck." Blah, blah. So after I had left the gig, about 6 months later, his guitar tech calls me and goes, "Hey, you want to make that thing?" I'm like, "Sure." It's like, "Okay, cool." So he wants to play it on the finale of American Idol. And I was like, "Okay, cool. When is that?" 3 weeks. So I designed, built, and delivered that guitar in a custom-built road case 3 weeks to the day.
Really?
Wow. Yeah.
How
Man,
stressed
very
out
cool.
was it? How stressed were you?
Man, there were times where I just had it all laying on the floor of the shop going, how am I going to put this together? And yeah, it was odd because you would think it would be super stressful, but it was more of the whole thing just sort of like flowed together really, really nicely. Oh. And then, we dropped it off. And
because I was going to ask if it changed, because once you did it, you thought about it, and then you can actually process it and redesign it.
In the later models, the only thing that I've changed on it is I elongated the upper horn.
Oh.
That was it.
That's nothing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I made it like another inch longer just to improve balance a little bit.
Gotcha.
And that guitar has been on every TV show under the moon, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does it say Nutter guitar on it?
Oh, yeah, both headstocks.
Yeah. Both headstocks. Now, is Nutter facing different because of the up and down headstock?
No,
Are they
parallel?
Symmetric?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how you would do that.
Yeah, they're parallel. Yeah, it's a six on the side headstock for each one. So the top neck is right-handed, the bottom neck's left-handed, so that you don't have to try to get a peg winder in between there. And then but the logos are parallel.
Yeah. So how many of those have you made?
I'm working on another one right now. I think I've done 10 or 11 of them since then. Yeah, and the thing is like I make them the same way. Aside from the elongated horn, you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black, because that's what the first one was done out of.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, that's just
doesn't need to be any more.
There's no options with that one.
All going to touring guys or gals or
It's all over the map.
Okay.
Yeah. Just that, and that's a wild thing about the boutique guitar market. Sometimes it goes to touring guys. Sometimes it goes to to somebody that's just going to hang it on their wall. Okay. Fine.
Wow. You need a lot of people like that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? What's going on now?
Man, just making as many guitars as I can get out the door. And for the last year, I've also been teaching at Musicians Institute Guitarcraft Academy here in town.
Yeah.
MI started in the late 70s out in Hollywood with GIT, and then we probably all remember the guitar ads for GIT and BIT for bass and percussion and vocal.
MIT.
Yeah.
PIT.
What was P?
Percussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and then
we got to add the drummers in there. It makes me feel good. You know how long I used to stare at them ads wishing I could go to that school?
Yeah.
Oh, my
PIT,
gosh.
it was a pit, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
So then in 95, they started the Guitarcraft Academy out there. And then moved it didn't move it here, but opened a division of it here about 4 years ago. So for the last year, I've been doing that.
Okay.
When I got out of high school, oddly enough, I wanted to go to MI to MI, like just because Paul Gilbert went there. And
Everybody went.
So Frank and Bali and just tons of guys. And I call, and this little girl answers the phone, and she said, "So yes, what were you interested in? Guitar, percussion, vocal, or bass?"
No, that's funny.
Wow.
And I went,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Slapping.
thank you so much."
Yeah. You're on second thought. You
I
know.
was like, if you don't even know it's a bass, then never mind.
Yeah. So you're building guitars, and is that your main gig? Right
Well,
now?
currently, as of April of this year, I actually took over as lead instructor at MI.
Oh,
Okay.
So I'm there a lot, and so I'm in my own shop early in the mornings, and then at MI from 1 to 10 every day.
Okay.
wow.
And then in my own shop again on Saturdays. So
Okay. That's a lot of building.
it's a lot of work, but it's great. It really is. And I don't have to be gone, so I still see my kids every day.
So you have 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 girls. Is that what you said?
No, I got, my little girl is 3, and my son is just turned a year.
Oh,
Okay.
congratulations!
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
awesome, man. Those are fun ages.
Oh man, yeah.
Except you're praying for the day that they're all out of diapers, because it's almost like you get a raise,
Totally.
Because diapers are just so bloody expensive, For parents that let their kids run around naked, when I was younger, I would get all bowed up about it. Now I'm like,
Knock yourself
let 'em
out.
be naked,
Absolutely.
I knew a family that tried to do washable diapers.
Oh,
That's the stupidest
man.
thing I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's just dumb.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, we'll get back on track here in a minute. A friend of mine had twins, and it was so bad. I'll never forget, because we were out in Arizona. One day we got them. It was so bad. We took them outside, took their diapers off, and literally hosed them off.
For real. Yeah. Absolutely.
Today you probably get in trouble doing that. But back then, man, I was
That was
like,
a bath.
I was like, there is no way we're undoing those diapers in the house, man, because this is some mean stuff. This is bragging rights. you know? But,
absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. So
Yeah,
you're
man.
working a lot at the shop. Tell me about your guitars. That there is a lot of builders.
Sure.
There's builders all over the place.
Sure.
Both boutique and mainstream. What makes yours different? Why should people get interested in your guitars and say, man, this is the next one for me?
Well, as opposed, there's the aesthetic version of it. Of the. This just doesn't look like anything else that you can get. But I usually will do things with the electronics that are considerably different than what people are doing. First of all, I make all the pickups in-house. A guy asked me, he goes, "Why are you making your own pickups?" And being funny. I was like, bragging rights, dude.
Yeah.
But in all reality, what it is it allows me to not only control what the guitar is going to sound like, but it allows me to control what it's going to look like as well. So as opposed to getting pickups from Seymour Duncan or Lindy Fralin or DiMarzio, and DiMarzio, which is a magnificent company. I was actually an endorsee for them for years and love their stuff. And if it wasn't for Larry DiMarzio, there would be no aftermarket pickup companies.
Yeah.
But I add in like a bunch of different switching options and just fun things that most guitar builders don't do because they don't know anything about electronics or they're scared of it. A lot of guitar players will go, man, I just want something simple. And then you look down at what's at their feet and they've got mission control.
Oh, yeah.
On the floor. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you want something simple that you can understand all of this mess that's going on down here, but you just need one volume and a pickup in your guitar?
Yeah.
I get that, but it's still my guitars. The Astro Captain, for example, makes noises that guitars don't make. And
that's the 3 pickup model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I tell I've told session guys here in town, I'm like, you don't have this guitar. It will do things that will sit in a track that texturally that you're not going to get out of your typical complement of a Strat, Tele, Les Paul, and a Gretsch. So.
And what kind of sound are you talking about?
Well, I mean, in the 3 humbuckers, there are you can have it set up to be just like like an Explorer, bridge, neck and bridge in the neck pickup. You can then engage the middle pickup in any point, so you can have sort of 3 pickup SG or Les Paul setups, or have all 3 pickups on at the same time. Then there are individual phase switches, so you can start getting into, say, Brian May territory, where you can reverse the phase on any of the pickups at any time. Also, you can coil cut any of the pickups. Now, whenever you do that, so you can then get into like Strat and Telecaster territory, and whenever you coil cut the pickups, the phase switches then not only will reverse phase on pickups, but it will shut off. It will decide what side of the humbucker is going to be on, whether it's going to be the front coil, the slug coil, or the screw coil. So it gets deep fast, and
you just lost about 87% of all guitar players right
Totally.
then when you said slug coil.
Totally. But it's
I had a few
cool.
friends that their nickname should have been Slug Coil.
Yes.
It'd be a great band name.
Yeah.
That actually would. That would be a really cool name.
Yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot of diversity in it.
Yeah.
Now, judging by the shape, and everybody listening will have to go to the website and look at it, how does it balance? How does it feel?
You would.
Is that part of the design?
It's a big part of the design. If you look at the Astro Captain, you'll also notice that around the arm contour that it's still very rounded, and it has a belly cut and an arm bevel, so it feels actually kind of like a Strat while it's on. So it feels very comfortable and very familiar while you're playing the guitar. But it's not. So even though it's a wild shape, it's not going to sit on you in a very strange way.
Okay.
My newest set neck model is much thinner, but it has no bevels, and the way it feels is kind of like sort of Fender meets Rickenbacker, I guess.
Okay.
Because the body's much thinner. It's an all maple body. That one has a variable coil cut on it. So there's a knob that as you turn down the knob, it turns down half of the humbucker. So you can go from full humbucker to single coil and everywhere in between. There's a center detent that sort of like puts you in P90 territory. So
that's really interesting.
So you automatically are trying to appeal to a specific type of guitar player.
I am just trying to do something that is a little off of the beaten path.
Yeah.
Like both visually, electronically. I don't do a lot of, actually I don't do any anymore, figured woods. because there's enough lollipops out there. You know, I don't want to see quilted. You won't see one of my Aster Captains
All solid colors.
With if it's a translucent, it's just going to be older. But yeah, you're not going to see flame maple. You're not going to see quilt maple. You will see a lot of sparkle.
Okay.
I do piles.
It goes
of sparkle
well with
finishes.
the shapes.
Yeah, and it's part of that whole aesthetic thing. I tell everybody I got glitter in my heart and under my eyelids because that stuff gets everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have a paint booth here, and
Yeah.
whenever that happens, oh my goodness, it's crazy. So why the glitter? I mean, why
Because
the
it looks
color?
cool, and it.
But it's so hard to do.
You know, I've developed a system, whether I'm doing it with lacquer or if I'm doing it in urethane, I can get it on really, really thin. I can do a glitter finish in lacquer that's level, that is equally as thin, or probably thinner than what you'll see most standard urethane finishes.
Now, how I'm not asking for your inside techniques, but how, because of the level that you would have to get to build it up.
Actually, I'll tell you exactly how I do that. Whether I do the process is the same, whether it's in nitro or if it's in urethane. I will after sealing the guitar and getting it leveled, I will then shoot a base color, whether it's a color that's similar to the flake or if it's a black or a white undercoat, whatever. So then I will shoot the base coat. Then I will take lacquer and thin it 1-to-1 with lacquer thinner. Or if it's urethane, I'll use an intercoat clear, the non-catalyzed thing that doesn't require a hardener. Thin that 1-to-1, and then mix in a 50-50 hit of 15 thousandths flake and 8 thousandths flake. Then that gets shot on the guitar. So all that's really providing is something for the thing to stick. Mm-hmm. You know, you can do the salt shaker method or use a flake buster or all other kinds of stuff. I found that makes the flake stand up and it makes it really hard to get it buried later. But by shooting it, it lays nice and flat.
Yeah.
Then I can shoot, for lacquer, I'll shoot 5 coats, do a level sand, and then I'll shoot 3 to 5 more coats, level and buff, and it's really, really just paper thin.
Gotcha. So, in your opinion, the difference between using a poly and a nitro, tonally?
As long as the finish is thin, who cares? That whole that debate that you see on the gear page, and nitrocellulose allows your guitar to breathe. Well, I'm sorry, Bill, but your guitar, if it's shot in nitro's a coating, it's a paint. If I hosed you down in nitrocellulose lacquer, you would die because your skin wouldn't be able to breathe. It's not going to let you breathe. A guitar it's a dead plant. It's made out of wood.
Yeah.
It doesn't breathe. Now it does vibrate, and that's the key. So as long as the finish goes on thin, and it allows the guitar to continue to vibrate, that's all that matters. Whether that finish is true oil, nitrocellulose lacquer, catalyzed polyurethane, polyester, conversion varnish, I don't care. As long as it's thin, that's all that matters.
So between a stain, you don't think there's much difference tonally between a stain and a lacquer, as long as the lacquer is thin, or is there a little subtle differences, or is that hard to judge?
Well, if you're staining, you're staining bare wood, then you're sealing, and then you're putting the top coats on.
Yeah.
So no. The flake might hinder vibration a little, but as long as it's really thin, you should be okay.
So my issue with it is always it might actually make it sound better. I mean, just because it has a thinner or a different coat or a different brand or a different whatever doesn't make it a better. If you have a Gibson Les Paul and it's nitro, it doesn't make it a better sound because it's nitro.
No.
In my opinion, and
No.
again, I'm coming from the drum community, and I'm like going, I don't understand how people get so bowed up on it. So that's why I asked the question.
They also will get bowed up over, mahogany sounds like this. maple sounds like this, and alder sounds like this. Well, that's you gotta take that stuff with a grain of salt, because those are very broad stroke kind of comments.
Well, and each piece of each individual one would probably sound different.
Oh, vastly.
Yeah.
What it's really more about than anything is density.
Yes, I agree with that.
So,
Yes.
and that's the same thing with weight. Lighter guitars don't sound better. They're lighter. Da-duh. That's it. I had a 1979 Strat that weighed a metric ton. My guitar tech called it the Penance Strat.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I don't know why I got rid of it. I loved that guitar, and the next two owners tracked me down to ask me why I got rid of it, because it was their favorite sounding guitar ever.
Wow.
So, John Suhr told me one of the greatest sounding guitar he ever had was an all maple body with a Floyd.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it really is about density and vibration is really what it comes down to. So just knock around on some stuff and listen to it as you're making things.
So when you're picking body and you're picking wood, is there anything that you're gauging, whether it's weight or density, or how are you doing that? Or you're just like going, hey man, these are going to sound great. Give me a slab of wood and let me cut it.
You go with things that are already familiar. I mostly work with alder and maple, and my fretboards are Bolivian rosewood, which is also known as Murado or Palo Ferro. But whenever I'm picking alder, guitar players today are really worried about weight for whatever reason. I don't know if they, play too many video games and don't get outside much, because that 45 minutes.
They squat when they pee.
Yeah, that 45-minute set with that 8-pound guitar is just too much for them, or what.
It is funny how guitar players are very interested in so how much does that weigh? When you're talking about
First question.
Les Pauls, how much does that guitar weigh?
7.1 pounds? Huh,
Yeah.
I'm interested.
What's it weigh?
7.2.
It's like, is your skirt too tight, sweetheart? What's the problem?
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about weight, but I'm also knocking on boards. Like when I go to the lumber yard, I'll put the thing up on its corner and I'll bang on it. And if it doesn't ring, then I'll move on to the next one. And that's really the thing, is I just want stuff to ring.
Yeah. So let's talk about Guitar Craft Academy. Mm-hmm. Those guys are awesome guys.
Oh,
great school.
It's
a beautiful location.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in there several times, and I think it's a great atmosphere. So what do you do there?
So we have the course is divided into 3 quarters. So the first quarter is mostly dedicated to learning design, drafting, repair, fretwork. By the end of the first quarter, they would have made a practice neck and some templates. The second quarter, you will construct your electric guitar. You'll, we do everything not from kits or pre-built stuff. It's all from rough lumber. You'll wind your own pickups. You will do all the finish work on the guitar, set up, and in addition to additional requirements of other drafting projects and refrets and setups and repair stuff. The third quarter is the acoustic department, where you will build a dreadnought from start to finish in 10 weeks.
Yeah,
and
it's kind of like a D28 or something like that.
It is. Yeah. You sort of study a 1937 Martin Herringbone, and at the end of that, during the acoustic class, it allows you to learn the process and figure out how to build any shape, really. So once you learn the construction techniques, then you can be off to the races to do
But they
whatever.
keep it towards a dreadnought, right?
Only a
because
dreadnought. You only build a dreadnought.
My goodness, if you have, I'm making this up, 10 students and they all want to have a unique body style and a slotted headstock and this and this, you're like, all right, come on, let's reel this in a little bit.
Yeah, in the electric side, you can design your own thing.
Yeah.
Tip to tail. And we've had some really, really cool different things. We've had some very traditional stuff too.
Yeah. One thing that I was really impressed with being out there and what I've seen is the wood quality that has been chosen.
Absolutely.
So some of the flame or quilt or some of that is just some really good quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. It's guys have made some very beautiful instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen several of them. Now, so in my position, I do a lot of hiring, and so I see a lot of students come in at various schools. Truthfully, one of the things that really impresses me is the quality of the builds compared to other schools' quality of builds are night and day. I know it sounds crazy,
Right on.
but some guys I've seen when they bring me a guitar and said, hey, I built this guitar at XYZ school, I'm looking at it going, oh my God, oh, cool. And you hand it back because you don't know what to say because, it's their first guitar.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of, obviously they'll get better and better, but the acceptance of the quality that they let them have was night and day. Now, I've seen some from Guitar Craft Academy and come in, and the first one that was like, hey, you want to see the guitar I built? Usually I'll say yes, but I really don't know if I want to see it.
Totally.
Because sometimes you're like, man, I was going to hire you, and after I see your guitar, I might not.
Yeah, totally.
And I was like, all right. And then I get it, and I'm looking and go, holy crap, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Where are most of your students going after they graduate?
They go. They're all over the map, really. They will start their own repair shop. They'll open up their own little building facility. They do it just for a hobby. They'll move on and go to work for companies like Gibson. We have a bunch of people at Novo. And, you see them kind of go all over the place. MI actually owns ESP, Schecter, and Takamine. So,
Well, they distribute Takamine.
Yes.
But anyways, go ahead.
Yeah.
Not to correct you, but
no,
yeah,
but you're absolutely.
yeah,
I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So they, if you wanted to work in those shops, we're willing to relocate, then you could, I'm sure that
Which is a
we'd be
cool
looking,
idea,
Yeah, we'd be
yeah.
looking for like job placement there, and the same thing with any of the other stuff that the instructors would have connections with, working for Guitar Center as a tech, going on the road as a guitar tech, or other smaller boutique guys across the country.
Yeah.
Or go back home and work at the
Totally.
music store.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great plus right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a cool thing.
Yeah. So when you're all said and done with this, what do you want out of the Nutter guitars? Because that's a brand.
Man, I would. My delusion of grandeur would be to be producing, I don't know, 150 to 200 guitars a year here.
That's a lot.
Well, I would have like 5 or 6 folks with me at that point. And then
Which a lot of people don't understand, but that's a lot of guitars.
That's a lot of guitars.
Yeah.
And then I would do. I would like to have an import line as well as a couple of amps.
Amps, interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have 2 amps on the drawing board right now that I'm sort of going through and designing and tweaking.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah, man.
We've got a guy over here that has been a player,
He's a player.
a builder. He's a teacher.
He's a teacher. Yeah.
Now, man, you're back to education.
Business
Yeah, all of
owner.
it. Yeah,
You're
full
back to
circle.
full circle. And now you kind of get to do a little bit of all of it. You play much still? Or?
My wife and I actually just did a gig, and so that was cool. Usually, right now, about the only thing I ever have time for is testing out a guitar once it's done.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I'll shoot a little video for it, but
Well, that's awesome.
yeah.
You doing lots of guitar shows too? I mean, are you?
Yeah, when I can. I love to do guitar shows. Those are fun.
Yeah, I saw you were set up at Summer NAMM. So.
I'll do Summer NAMM. I'll actually do Winter NAMM again.
The one thing that we got to talk about, though, is I seen a picture where Jim from Reverb did a little interview of you.
Yeah.
That way overdressed.
He is.
He was, man. I think he had
You have a
like
shirt and tie
a
on, or?
yeah.
Yeah, see, that-
we've got to talk about that.
I love to do that because that's the.
it
that's,
looked good with the guitar, by the way. It kind of had a.
That's the thing. Is
Okay.
I like it's the skinny tie and the fit suit.
So it fitted.
That's a
Okay.
very
all right.
like NASA in 1967
Yeah.
kind
You're
of
right.
situation.
You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Because
like-
otherwise, the only time people wear a suit and tie is when they're
Funerals,
showing up in court.
weddings.
And it's another thing of
Too.
you go to NAMM and it's a sea of Chuck Taylors and bowling shirts.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
That's another way to stand out. Not only the guitar is sparkly
right.
and really angular, but
Yeah.
I'm wearing a suit.
Yeah.
You're right. You got me on that. Well, you looked good.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
I
seen
appreciate
that, and I
that.
said, man, he looks good.
We'll have to swing by and say hello to him at Winter NAMM this year.
Absolutely.
Are you going to be there at the winter
Yes.
show?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll be
Awesome.
out there.
We're going to do more podcasts. We may have to do a follow-up.
Do
How's
it.
that?
Yeah, man.
Do
All right.
it.
So how's everybody going to reach out to you? Give us your website, contact information, everything.
The website is Nutter Guitars, Nutter guitars.com. You can reach me at Brian with an I, Brian, at nutterguitars.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm most active on Instagram at Nutter Guitars. There also, there's Nutter Guitars Facebook page and Twitter. Twitter is really sort of just, there's not much going on there.
Gotcha.
And then I'm trying to get a little bit more content up on my my YouTube channel as well,
Yeah.
which is Nutter Guitars as
Oh,
well.
okay. Cool.
Actually, are you looking for dealers or are you just selling direct?
I am doing a little of both.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to get more dealers on board.
Okay.
Okay. So
All
they
right.
could reach out to you
Yeah.
Absolutely.
that way?
Yes.
Okay. Because we'll have a lot of our listeners are dealers, have music stores all across the United States. So hopefully you'll get some people calling and going,
That'd be
hey,
great.
Yeah.
let's become a dealer.
All right.
Anything we didn't ask that you want to get out?
Yeah. anything
No,
we missed?
man, I think that pretty much covers
All right,
everything.
we kind of went through a whole lot of different things. So
Yeah.
it was a pleasure.
Yeah,
This was a good time.
Yeah, we'll have to do a follow up.
Sure.
You know, maybe at the Winter NAMM show we can sneak you in and do another one.
Hopefully it's a positive one and not one where you've like,
no, no,
I don't know where I went wrong.
No, they're all good.
You should have made a telly.
Well, no, I mean, what's cool is we have a lot of dealers that would like your guitar, the shape of your guitar,
Yeah.
the style of your guitar. So hopefully it'll give you a little more exposure.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah.
amazing.
You know, and
that
get
would
some
be
people
amazing.
coming your way, and especially the import thing. That's fascinating, man. That opens
Yeah.
up a whole
I
avenue. So I encourage you to get serious about that.
Yeah. man.
You know, because that segues into custom American stuff. So-
Totally.
Yeah.
all right, I'm good. You good?
Man, we're good, man. We appreciate you coming out.
Dude, this has
and,
been great.
Yes.
Yeah, like we said, anybody wants to check him out, just hit up the information he gave. But and also,
Which is nutterguitars.com.
nutterguitars.com. It's all there. But yeah, and anybody else listening, we love feedback. If you have something to say about this episode or other ones, just go to themusicretailshow.com or themusicretailshow@gmail.com.
All right, we
and
got
you
it
can
right.
email us.
Perfect.
And yeah, we can do that. But other
Awesome.
than that, man, we'll see.
Brian, we appreciate you, man.
No,
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for having me here. This has been a good time.
Until the next episode.
Yeah,
Yep.
man.
The Music Retail Show.